All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating thesis from hedge fund manager Harris Kupperman. He's making a pretty bold claim that one company in the Florida Panhandle could be a way to triple your investment. So yeah, let's get into it. So let's just jump right in. The claim is a potential 3x return. I mean, you gotta ask, right? How could one single real estate company have that much hidden value just sitting there? Well, it all starts with this number, over $100. That's Cooperman's price target for the St. Joe Company, ticker JOE. Now, depending on when you're watching this, that could be double, maybe even triple its current price. A huge jump. And this quote from Kupperman, this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. He's basically shouting from the rooftops that the market is just not paying attention. He sees this treasure chest, this massive, valuable piece of land that's appreciating like crazy, and he thinks it's hidden in plain sight. Okay, so before we dig into the company itself, you gotta understand the guy behind the thesis. Who is the investor making this huge bet? So this is Harris Kupperman. A lot of people know him as Kuppy. He runs a hedge fund, Praetorian Capital, and writes a popular blog called Adventures in Capitalism. Now, he's known for this really unfiltered, straight-shooting style. And according to the source material, he's got a pretty good track record of being early on big macro trends, like inflation and energy. But here's the kicker. This isn't just some idea he's throwing around. He's held St. Joe as one of his top positions since 2020. He has serious skin in the game here. All right, so that's Kuppy, but the real star of this show, the main character, is the asset itself. So let's pull back the curtain on the St. Joe Company. Get a load at this number. The company owns a mind-boggling 167,000 acres of land, and it's almost all concentrated in one place, the Northwest Florida Panhandle. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your head around that number. To put it in perspective, think about this. That's like having more than 120,000 football fields. And here's the really crucial detail. 90% of that land is within 15 miles of the Gulf Coast. Location, 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 right? And this is where the thesis gets really juicy. Look at this breakdown. Just 2% of all that land is generating almost 2/3 of the company's revenue right now. So what does that mean? It means the other 98% is basically a giant undeveloped land bank, just sitting there, waiting for a catalyst to unlock all that value. So what could that catalyst possibly be? Well, according to Kupperman's thesis, it's one of the biggest demographic shifts happening right now. A huge migration of people and their money. Kupperman actually has a pretty colorful name for this trend. He calls it the 0.1% refugee crisis. Now, that's his term for the wave of wealthy folks moving out of high-tax states and heading to places like Florida. And in his eyes, this specific demographic shift is the engine that's going to fire up the value of all that St. Joe land. And he's not subtle about connecting this idea to real-world political events. Take this, for example. After an election in New York City, he sent out this tweet, directly linking the result to what he calls the 1% exodus. So the key point of his argument really boils down to this stark contrast he sees. On one hand, he believes people are leaving states like New York and California because of things he sees as high taxes and crime. And on the other hand, he argues they're being pulled to Florida by things like no state income tax and pro-business policies. And he often just boils this entire complex political and economic idea down into this one punchy, super memorable catchphrase that ties his investment directly to his take on Florida's leadership. Okay, so we've got the land, we've got the migration catalyst, but how does that actually turn into a 3x return on your money? Let's get into the numbers and see exactly how Kupperman breaks down the valuation. Okay, so here's the math in a nutshell, based on the analysis from the source. Just the land bank alone, if you look at comparable sales, is estimated to be worth almost $9 billion. Then you add in their income-producing assets, hotels, that kind of thing, and the total estimated value shoots up to over $10.5 billion. And right here, this is it. This is the core of the entire thesis. The stock market is currently valuing the whole company at around $3.8 billion. But Kupperman's estimate of what the assets are actually worth? Over $10 billion. That giant chasm between the price and the value? That's the whole ballgame. That's the opportunity. Now, because of that huge valuation gap, he doesn't see this as some quick flip. Nope. He calls it a forever trade. So let's unpack what he means by that. The logic here is pretty straightforward. It's like a 4-step process. First, scarcity. I mean, you literally can't make more coastal Florida land. It's a finite resource. Second, you have the catalyst. This migration of people and wealth creates constant long-term demand. Third, St. Joe can then monetize that demand by developing its land, not just for a year or two, but for decades, generating steady cash flow. And here's the magic part. Step 4, compounding. The company can take that cash and reinvest it into new high-return projects on the rest of the land that it already owns. It creates this incredible growth flywheel that just keeps building on itself year after year. And it all comes back to his signature catchphrase, right? It's just a simple question that really wraps up his entire bullish, long-term conviction. So when you boil it all down, it really comes to this. Is this St. Joe company, this once-in-a-generation land play, perfectly positioned to ride a massive demographic wave? Or is it just a risky bet that's tied way too closely to the ups and downs of a volatile housing market? That's the central question at the very heart of this entire thesis.